So the 198th North London derby ends in an Arsenal victory at the Emirates. 4-1 the final score. 2 goals in 5 minutes from Leandro Trossard and Eberechi Eze, who was playing in the fixture for the first time. Got the Gunners going at the end of the first half. Eze got another one to make it 3-0 in the first minute of the second half. And Arsenal were cruising, but to their credit, Spurs bounced back. Lovely long-distance goal from Richarlison made it interesting. But then Eze got his hat-trick in the 76th minute. He became only the 4th player to ever score a hat-trick in the North London derby. And Spurs still haven't won at the Emirates in the league for 15 years. Now, in terms of the table, you can see there, it puts Arsenal 6 points clear of Chelsea at the top. A big drop for Spurs. They started the weekend in 5th and ended in 9th, still on 16 points. Adam Hunt and Troy Deeney here in the Golazo Network studio, breaking it down for you. Troy, I mean, in the end, it was a pretty dominant performance from Arsenal. They were far too good from Spurs, weren't they? Yeah,
it was men versus boys all the way through, Adam. When you look at it, Arsenal, we know what we're going to expect. Organised, fit, strong, normally more of a threat from set pieces. But today, they just ran all over this Spurs team. Really disappointed with Spurs, and we'll come on to that in a little while. But I just think the way the Arsenal are set up, 6 points clear now, it just feels that it's a little bit different. It feels like this is their year. Spurs really disappointed, but just looking at some of the stats, 17 shots to 3 for Arsenal over Spurs today, and Spurs didn't have one shot in Arsenal's penalty area. So tells the tale of the tape, and unfortunately, when you look at these numbers, it just doesn't look good for Spurs. But for Arsenal, excellent. And Eberechi Eze, fantastic on the day. And he now, maybe for England, can start to come into that conversation about the number 10. We know Jude Bellingham, Cole Palmer, Morgan Rogers, who scored 2 today. So really interesting how that dynamic's going to play out. But Arsenal right now are just unstoppable. We'll talk a bit more about what Arsenal got right in just a second. But let's pick the bones out of it for Spurs. Do you think there's a lack of big name, big game players in their first 11? Just a lack of men, and I'm sorry to say that because you talk about other professionals, but who are the guys that are going to take the fight to this Arsenal team? I've been there in the dugout or in the tunnel. You're looking to the left and you go, right, these are some big guys. We've got to be physically at it today. And I looked at this Spurs team. I think without Van der Ven, Romero, Danzo came off at half-time, but to be fair, didn't really put a foot wrong. Paulinho, that's it. But when you go for the Arsenal team, you go from top to bottom, you know who's going to be in, and they're all together. And little things like when one of their players goes down, everyone rushes in. Spurs, to me, are a nice team. They are giving the ball to Kudos at this moment in time and hoping he can run past 15 players and make it happen. It just doesn't feel like anything that Thomas Frank has implemented or anything that we saw at Brentford, which we got excited about. We're not seeing that at this moment in time. Saying the team might be a bit too nice. The manager's certainly very nice. We love him. I've interviewed him. He's a lovely guy. Is there potential that these are the kind of performances, the kind of games where he will be judged on, that potentially this job is a bit too big for him? Yeah, I think that's a fair statement now. I think when you look at what he inherited from Ange Postecoglou, take the European adventure out of it, obviously they won a trophy. But they were 16th last year. They were really poor. Obviously a lot of injuries, and we know it was terrible. But where they are now, where they find themselves as we sit here now, 9th in the league, their last 5 games have lost, won, lost, drawn, lost. It's the most Spurs thing we ever get to know and feel. I can't sit here and say I've seen a definitive change. It started really well. He wanted 3 or 4 different ideas tactically. If I remember back to that game against PSG, they conducted themselves really well. But I think over the course of time, people show you who they are and what they are. And a lot of these Spurs players have shown me that on a one-off game, yes, they can be good. But over the course of a season, they're just too inconsistent for Spurs to be really up there and challenging. And the counter to that, though, and I've seen you speak about this before with other clubs, about the culture that's in the dressing room, and that takes time to build. He did that over many, many years at Brentford to get to the point where he did towards the end of his time there, where they were greater than the sum of their parts, weren't they, because of that team spirit. Do we need to give him time to do that at Spurs, to build that culture of winning mentality again and not being Spursy? Yes, we do need to give him that time. But I think the difference is when you're at Brentford, you are allowed that time because they are a smaller club and they're renowned for giving their managers time, bringing players in, and they have a system that works. He was brought into Spurs to turn it around, to get it not being what it was and get them fighting for Champions League football. So, yes, in essence, they should. If you literally look at Arsenal, they've given Arteta now, this is year 6. We see how that whole club has transformed. But he needs to make a statement. I think the signings, I spoke about this in the summer, the names are great. Xavi Simons, Koulibaly, Kudos, they sound great. It's a bit like FIFA. When you get them on the PlayStation, oh my God, this is great. But in reality, these guys are there for a reason. Why are not the other big clubs going and taking them? Because they are inconsistent. They're talented but inconsistent. So who do you sit behind and go, right, these players are going to get me out of it? No James Maddison this year. We haven't seen Kulusevski, obviously due to injury. So you start looking around and who's the player that you go, they're going to build this team with me? And I don't think he has that at the moment in time.
How long will it take? If you were to say, okay, this is a fair amount of time for Thomas Frank to turn things around at Spurs, how long would that
normally
be?
You would say, for it to be fair, right, you'd say 3 years. That'd be fair to be able to go. There's a full assessment of a large body of work to see what we can do. We know this game, though. You can look at Man United with Ruben Amorim. He's 1 year into his tenure, and you can see a completely different team. But every single week for the last year, is this the game? If you lose this game, he's getting sacked. That level of pressure that comes at these big teams, Thomas Frank has to change. And I'm just looking at it, and I just don't see the player I can hang my hat on. I really don't. You tell me.
Well, one player I bet he wishes he had was Eberechi Eze.
Oh,
he was so close to signing for Spurs. I mean, he was literally a day away from being a Spurs player, and then they face the frustration of playing against him, and arguably his best performance of the season, scoring a hat-trick against them. I mean, they were cut apart by several players, but Eze was brilliant, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was at the forefront of everything. Great for Arsenal today. I think when you look at this Arsenal team, they're so well organised, well drilled. Everyone knows their job, and they're relentless. They keep doing the same thing time after time. And I just thought the way that Spurs set up, they would have to be perfect. Like they were against Man City earlier on in the season, they'd have to have a performance like that would allow for the platform to shut down Arsenal. Unfortunately, they didn't. Eze, I think 4 shots in the game, 3 goals. Unbelievable game for him. He just felt like, as a player, you have it. Every now and again, you have this game where it doesn't matter what happens, you're going to be great. And it's just ironic, and it feels like the footballing gods were like, you know what, today is the day you're going to have your breakout moment for Arsenal. But I thought every Arsenal player was just better than every Spurs player.
A lot of talk pre-game was how Arsenal would cope without Gabriel, who's injured.
Yeah.
It was Hincapié came in, making his first Premier League start against Spurs in the North London derby. May not necessarily be the easiest first game, but he looked really good, didn't he? Do you think he's going to stick with that, Saliba and Hincapié going forward as the centre-back partnership?
I think he will. I think Mascara had his chance earlier on in the season and was a little bit wobbly, especially in that Man City game. I think he's really happy with his fullbacks when you look at Yuri Timber and Calafiore. He knows that those guys give him that solid base, and the connections that Trossard and Calafiore have, and Saka and Timber on the opposite side, he's going to stick with that. Hincapié has done well, obviously, for Bayer Leverkusen as a centre-back as well, so no real surprise. But for me, I just think the spine of this team is fantastic. And you look at Raya in goal, Saliba, Declan Rice, Eze, even Moreno, who's not naturally a striker, but he's showing you that he can show up in big games. So I just think it's a very, very good Arsenal team. And that consistency and that know-how of what we're going to do is now just starting to grow with confidence game after game. Massive game for them against Bayern Munich on Tuesday, I believe, Wednesday. Yeah, it'll be Wednesday because it's Sunday. Wednesday, yeah.
Wednesday.
It's a huge game for them. I think that's going to be a massive test because I think Bayern will be respectful, but they won't be fearful of this Arsenal team.
Who stops them in the league? Do you think Arsenal will? Because for me, when I watch them compared to what we've seen in previous seasons, those games where they would either lose or come up with a draw when they shouldn't have done, they're the games they're getting through now. For example, Sunderland. That was a game where they might have slipped up and lost that game in previous seasons. They came away with a draw and looks like a good point. Fulham as well earlier on in the season. They won 1-0 away, didn't they? Didn't play very well, but they got the victory. Do you think that is what the difference is between Arsenal this season and in previous seasons? Is those games they might have drawn or lost, they're getting through them now?
100%. I also think now, just looking at the next 10 fixtures, if you ask me there who do they lose against, I could honestly say I can't see anyone that I'm willing to put money on beats them. I think this week has been identified as a tough game. Bayern Munich and Chelsea obviously both have really good squads, a lot of attacking talent. But in years gone by, I would have looked at Brentford and said, oh, the set pieces of Brentford will cause you a problem. Now you don't. You think actually Arsenal can deal with that. They're physically strong. I think the only way Arsenal lose now is through injuries. By the football gods, giving injuries to key people. I just don't see anybody being able to catch them. When you look at the league table and how good they are, look, they've got a few injuries here, but none of these are key injuries that people are out for 4, 5, 6 months. These are just it's a month. These are the things that happen. They've recruited so well now that they have replacements to fill in. But when you look at the league table, they're 29 points. Who was we saying this weekend? Man City were the closest rivals. They're on 22. How are you going to close that gap? They only play each other one more time. I just can't see Arsenal losing 4 games. I just can't. At this moment in time, as we sit here today, I can't tell you 4 teams that are going to beat them.
As for Spurs, now we've had a few months to analyse their team, analyse the manager in the new job. What do you think would be a successful season for them in the league? Can they finish inside the top 4? Would top 6 be more realistic?
They can't finish in the top 4. Not how it's currently constructed. Who's the goal scorer?
Well, they haven't really got. We were saying this before we came on air. They haven't really got a number 9. Counting on Richarlison scoring some goals, Simmons coming off the bench, but they haven't got a player you'd say, in terms of your day, an out-and-out striker.
No, of course. And again, in world football, there's that lack of depth now in the number 9 out-and-out goal scorer. But when I look at even Liverpool having a terrible start to the season, they've got goals in their team. I look at Man United, they've got goals in their team. Aston Villa, Brighton, Man City, Chelsea, Newcastle. I see all these teams with goals in their team. I look at Tottenham and I think, you're a team I would love to play against. You're really nice. Yes, there's going to be days where it all clicks and you look really fantastic. But 9 times out of 10, I think we can physically run over you. And I think that is a problem. So for me, anywhere from 6th to 8th is obviously a massive improvement from last year. But I also think for the amount of money and the aspiration that this football club has, I also think it's a disappointing season.